Hey there. So spirit extends and ego projects. So sitting with that for a second, noticing the difference between what I do from my spiritual nature is an extension forward into, density. I'm extending myself forward. And there is a fullness to that. There is I'm connecting to the thing on the outside that I'm extending into. And normally that thing that you're connecting to is a creation of your own. And then you have ego, which projects, and it kind of like projects outward its existence and requires something in the interim, in the space between, to fill it. So if we consider that the ego is a projector and that spiritualism, essence, I should say, is an extender, I want you to think of what it was like to be in a more primitive time, looking up at the sky. If you can imagine yourself as a caveman or a cavewoman, just being in nature, sticking your feet in a river, cleansing yourself, whatever that is, there's a fullness to that way of being that doesn't question itself. We don't need anybody outside of us to validate that we exist in that kind of fullness. And that's in the way that I have interpreted this, and not saying that this is true physically, but metaphorically, it seems quite interesting and curious to look at, that actually the ego itself, in asking, what am I, right? The ego goes, what is beingness? And then characterizes and judges beingness. And it's okay, but that's just what's going on. It's like, okay, beingness is without question. And we, at points in our evolution, were at a space where you could call consciousness a blessing or a curse, where we were unaware to even question our beingness. And it seems like what we've done as a God self is procreate. We used to have in that kind of awareness many souls, almost like the fullness of many souls in one body. And now we've procreated. The population has gone up. There's so much separation in the world. We've procreated all of the aspects of ourselves that we didn't necessarily like or that we did like. And when we questioned them, we procreated them. And it's almost as if we have to meet them again to bring us back into sovereign fullness of the God self that we are. But what happens is that we're not really meeting anyone. We're not even meeting in the middle usually, and we're not even connecting, because the groups that we identify with to belong to, which is what the ego is going to do when it has to validate its own existence, they're either the disenfranchised group, or they're the group that is going, in fear of maybe losing their power and being the disenfranchised. So there's always a victim-perpetrator dynamic going on. And even within those groups, the microcosm of the victim-perpetrator dynamic is going on, because in those groups, you have to prove that you belong there. You're not a real Christian unless you ... You're not a real boy, like Pinocchio, so to speak, until you prove that you're really belonging to this group, right? So there's always an element of self-doubt in the belonging that we choose to belong to, basically. Because in a second, if we are ostracized from that way of being or that identity, we're going to have to find a different group to belong to. So on an outer scale, it's almost as if, we extend or project our need to belong onto other individuals who are also projecting their need to belong. And then we categorize ourselves into groups. And if even someone like me, who I really just, the labels thing, it drives me crazy. And that puts me in a specific category, right? There's a specific category of my kind of people who are like, why are you using labels? It's like so limiting for you. And most of the time when we're using labels, we're using them to try to get out of being something else and into what it is that we want. And normally we're going, I don't want to be a part of that, so I have to be something else. But we're fitting into kind of the same, just a flip-flop dynamic energetically, the same exact thing that we're trying to get out of. So what I really want to say today is, like, if you can pull back from the groupthink, in the sense that, yes, we are communal beings. We need each other to belong, right? It's as if my God self is experiencing its God self through me and through you. And if we can look at each other and go, you are an extension of me. You are a part of me. If I can look at everybody I drive by or walk by, and I don't have to do anything for them to prove this to them, but I can look at them and go, I love you. Or I can look at them and feel like they are an eternal being with godlike potential, and whether they utilize it or not. And I don't judge them for whether they use it or not. So if I can look at these people and extend that onto them, I'm not going to need to belong to a specific kind of group to prove that my existence is righteous, right? Because you're all my group. I am you and you are me. And if I look at you like you are me, and I've learned to love me instead of, self-sabotage and hate myself constantly, which I would have projected outward before, and that would have become what was true for you in my presence also. But because I have learned to love myself, I can extend that outward to you and go, I love you, and pull back almost into my sovereignty when I do that, because that's the entirety of my God self going, I am in here and I declare that I love you. I am extending something outward to you, right? But it starts here. It's not just this mental think like, oh, I love you. Oh, I love you. No, it starts here like, whoa, I'm in here. First, you have to get here. Somebody emailed me the other day wanting to work with me, and I responded that I can get here. And I know I've talked about this before, but what I mean by that, by saying to this person, not I can get here, but I can get you here, is that we cannot make any moves in life until we assess where we actually are. We have to understand the programming that we're working with, period. We have to understand that on a DNA level, our coding in our DNA is a light body that can be switched on and off just like a computer. We have to understand where we are and what we're working with. And sure, maybe we can label that sometimes so we can utilize the label to move us from like steps to get out of that specific density. But ultimately, we have to understand that we are in a potential for change, but also that we have to get to exactly where we are in order to go where we want to go. And most of us are resisting where we are, going, no, I just have to get out, I just have to get out, I have to get out. And we're not actually willing to like sit in and go, okay, I'm in here. And if it feels like shit to be in here, most people go, I want to get out, and they escape the energy body. We can't do that. We have to go, okay, it feels like shit to be in here. I'm in here. Right? And it's through that process, literally through it, that you can transmute the density, that you can be comfortable with the density, and that you can literally walk people from that density to the density in which they choose to be. But first you have to understand the density to go, okay, I can get you here. So you can feel comfortable being here, safe enough to be here right now. And then you'll feel safe enough and bold enough to make moves, but you got to get here first without like fearing exactly where you are. So ultimately, we got to get in here inside of the body, the many aspects of us, and every single person is a mirror character for something that's going on inside of us. What we don't like about other people, we can be sure that we are reflecting in some way in ourselves. I'm not going to get too much into this because I could go on and on and on about it. But when we utilize other people and as a being that is in here fully, extend ourselves and go, you are me, I am you, and I love you. When we can do that, we don't need the groupthink. We don't need the polarization. We don't need any of those things that basically we use as crutches to hold up our identity at this point in evolution. So I'm not saying that crutches aren't good to hold up our identity. I'm not saying that the ego isn't a necessary thing for being in a human perspective. But what I am saying is it's really cool to be able to look down at it and go, wow, that's my ego, and this is what it's doing, this is what it's saying, and this is what I want to extend into that void, because the ego is always in void, it's always in lack. And when you really can get into it and go, God damn, the emptiness is so real, but so is the fullness, that you can literally extend into that. So the ego is projecting outward. It's always empty, it's always empty, it's always empty. And when you go, okay, I am all in here, I'm inside the void, I'm inside the emptiness. I'm inside the feeling of like, it feels like shit and hard. I'm in here. Then you can start extending what it is that you actually are on the planet. And that's when you can be seen, right? We're always like kind of hiding, and we're mad that we're invisible, but also like actively desire to be invisible. That's when you can truly be seen, is when you can extend from a place inside of yourself that kind of negates the ego. It's like aware of it, but that goes, you know, that's you at play. That's your game of chess, but I do have the capacity to override you and actually extend myself into you with love instead of project my emptiness outward. Okay, there's that. Bye, guys.